out there? Hello, welcome. Sorry I had an issue with maybe not getting all of the emails out properly, so now I'm just getting it back together with that. Wonderful. I just want to make sure I can see everybody's face. Oh, I just pressed something. Okay, I think we're doing good. Wonderful. Welcome, Zach. Lucy is here, but she is not on video, and I'm going to pick up now. Okay, good. Just getting myself together.
I have an old screen.
That's cool. Oh, and I see we've got some more folks joining in. That's Ed and Mike. Fantastic.
Yep. Did you just start?
I started a few minutes ago, but it seems that maybe my initial email didn't go out properly because Noel texted me that he didn't get an email. So I just resent it, and hopefully now people will get back on.
We use the meeting ID that you gave Mike, and Zoom says the host hasn't arrived yet.
The one that I texted him?
Well, there were two of you gave me.
The one that starts with 466.
Let's see. The meeting we're at right now.
It worked, but the other one, this is from last week.
No, she just gave it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense if the one that I gave you earlier today was from last week, and that the one that started with the 9 was from tonight. So it's technology. Zach, can I ask you, did you receive an email just a few minutes ago, or did you get one closer to 6?
Only got it just now.
I got both. I joined after the first one, but apparently you didn't know I was here.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't see you on the screen. All right, excellent. So good, everyone's been, and also let me say this. Thank you for bearing with me when the technology is hinky-jinky. Really, thank you very much, because it's like we're working with this, but like I was talking with Mike earlier today about how, we're trying to use this evil technology in order to use it for the forces of good, and sometimes technological gremlins, make it a little hard. Hello, Noel. Speaking of technological gremlins, hello, welcome. Happy that everyone got on.
Yay.
And also, thank you very much for texting me. If you're not able to get on, that's excellent. And Noel, I know because you've got like a pretty loud bird, and when your bird squawks, we can all hear it. Can I please ask you to mute unless you're going to make a comment?
Certainly.
Thank you. Even though we love your bird, but he's very loud. Okay, so I'm going to get going now on the actual meat and potatoes, and I'll also tell you guys all what I was telling Lucy, that when I record these, I record the video conference, which shows all of our faces and records our voices, and I also record whatever I'm drawing on my iPad and is reflected back here on this screen. So if you ever feel like, hey, that's so tiny, I can't see, and you feel frustrated, don't feel frustrated. This is recorded and is uploaded in the lesson section of our class, and then after a day or two, I'm usually able to upload it so it's accessible. So we can access the video, and you can also access my screen. And what we've been talking about is epigenetics, which is the code that rules the code. So one of the things, all right, good, and I'll get all of my recordings going again. Your genes are not static. Your genes are not written in stone. The good news is that you have a great deal of power or control by using your consciousness as to what your genes express. So the expression of your genes is related to your third eye, and the timeline that you're experiencing is related to your third eye. And that's what I was just drawing back here. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'm going to use like big, heavy, dark lines. But back behind me, I have just drawn one of these lovely time vortexes. And if you've been in the class, if you're familiar that I use this shape all the time, and that it shows up in artwork, it shows up in decorative artwork. Here's an image of a person, and it's this area down here that would be considered this negative space in between the large rotating spheres that create the chakras. Okay, so this is a graphic representation of the timelines that make up your life. And these are the possibilities that you are able to experience. And beginning at this lower edge, the lower edge would be analogous to birth. And it's hard to get born. You have to work very, very hard just to grow a fetus. It is no small feat. It is very challenging and difficult. And after doing that, many times you die upon birth. Many times you die in infancy. Many times you die. Think about how vulnerable babies are to any kind of disease or being dropped or any kind of thing. You die a lot when you're a little tiny child, and that also helps to understand the shape. Like, look at how wide this is at the bottom. But the idea is that just like a video game or a fractal program exploring every single iteration, you are here with your consciousness exploring every single iteration or possible possibility. And that's what this shape is. This shape is the shape of every single possibility of your existence, including ones where you die. So this edge, that edge up along there and up along there, the sides, and now I'm going to highlight that edge on my back screen here in orange. So the sides of the cone. That is the flowing membrane of death. Death is personified as a skeleton with a scythe that's going to cut you down, but that's through your anthropomorphic filter of perception. And in an abstract sense, death is a flowing membrane. It is a force that unmakes the temporal ego when consciousness reaches that boundary. So it is literally, death is the boundary, the membrane between two different realms. This, you're familiar from my class, you've been here before, you know what this is. I was even having a dream that I was carrying this sculpture around and using it to gesture and talk to people. This is the negative space of this sculpture. So the flowing membrane of death on this sculpture is this shape right here. That. And so if you are in this realm down here where my finger is, you can't get into the orange area. There's a membrane there that prevents you. These are literally two different realms, two different places. And the determining factor of what determines which timeline you're on has everything to do with your mind, your consciousness, and your belief system, the structure of your belief system. So now let's get a little bit away from what I've recorded and you've already listened on lesson 3. Let's talk a little bit about what ascended mastery is, because I need to use a different color so you can really see. Let's use, how about red? Red should be able to show up on there. I'm now going up and down this time vortex, big fat red line. This right here, that central timeline would be the timeline that would be analogous to becoming an ascended master. And when we use that term, it's not meant to be like, oh, ascended master, like rock star. It's meant to describe a person who has done something, like a person who finished a marathon. Well, if you have made it on that timeline up to this wormhole, which is the way that you exit reality. Remember I said you can't get from this negative space into there? Well, you can, but the way that you get in there is by getting all the way up to the top of that apparatus there, and there's a little tiny wormhole. And I say that in order to get through there, you must be very slender. And the slenderness is not about the size of your body, it is about the size of your ego. You have to get rid of the excess outer distortions, the layers that aren't really you. Just like a person can be your core persona, but with the hundreds of pounds, hundreds of layers of fat on top. A lot of people have an ego that is comprised of many thick layers of emotional experience that's undigested from the past, or a sense of your identity and who you are. Most people have a personal history and they carry it around with them. Like, I'm so and so person. I grew up on this street. I had these experiences. This is who I am. And like that is like carrying around a lot of ballast. If you are in a hot air balloon or if you are on a ship, these contrivances, they carry ballast so that when they need to rise higher, that's really how they control their trajectory. Your stored up emotional experiences are like your ballast. And in many ways, it keeps you at denser levels, but at a certain point, in order to go into the less dense realm, you have to shed that ballast. So that might mean letting go of your personal story, the narrative that you are constantly upholding that says, I was born here, I had these experiences, and this is who I am now. Even in terms of many people unwittingly hold on to negative experiences like, oh, I had this horrible car accident or this horrible traumatic experience or, this attack or illness or whatever it is, and then define themselves based on what that was. But really, the good news is you don't have to be limited or defined by your limitations of the past. And when you achieve ascended mastery, and each one of us has a timeline where this can happen, this is also good news. There's no one that is alive that doesn't have that possibility. It is programmed in. It's like you have a skeleton, you were born with a spine, it's in there. This central timeline and central experience exists for each one of us. And that same thing can be said for everyone, no matter how distorted they actually are. So think of the worst mass murderer you can think of. Hitler, Stalin, whomever, Charles Manson, worst person in the world. They all have an ascended master timeline. However, they're not occupying it. What they're occupying are, and now I'm going to switch to like a different color that's in contrast. They're occupying a different timeline that's over on the side. That's a distortion of who they really are. Really think about it. If Hitler's life had gone differently, if he had made different choices, if he had acted differently, he wouldn't have been remembered as one of the worst, evil, megalomaniacal mass murderers of the 20th century. He could have been an artist. He could have helped people in some way. It's such a stretch to think of that character being that different, but that potential exists within that character. So now we're talking about your timelines and we're talking about your genes, because although this is your timelines, these are set. They are like the musical score of your life. But you as the musician who is playing the music get to decide how the notes are played, how it is emphasized, how it is artistically interpreted. So I was also talking with Mike today about the difference between being an organic, corporeal being, like the beings that are here on this video conference. But remember, we also have a lot of beings that are watching us right now and that are tuned into our reality TV show, the reality show of our lives, that are not corporeal beings. And they are often fascinated by what corporeal beings are doing because of the level of creativity that we have access to. So this has to do with why I came in to the physical realm. Like, why did I come into the physical realm? Because it was not possible for me to create something new, this new dimension and the flying rainbow lasagna, without being physical, without being immersed in time. So to look at timelines like this is like looking at, music, like sheets of music, but it's not like actually listening to the music or actually playing the music with a symphony. Being submerged in the third dimension and experiencing the flow of time that is the fourth dimension means that you get to actually play the music note by note and be alongside other beings who are also playing their music note by note. So now I want to get on to overlapping time cones. And also, wait, I don't want to skip this important aspect of being an ascended master. There's implications here. When we talk about ascended mastery and that even the worst mass murderer has an ascended master inside of them, the implication is that all ascended masters, people who have gone to the highest level and graduated from this level of density, they are responsible for or they are beholden to their unconscious dark side. That each one of them had a lower nature, or let's say all of this, area around the sides of the core persona where exploration took place. Maybe Hitler was exploring what it would be like to kill millions and millions of people. And that was part of his journey of refinement, but that's not the end of his journey of refinement. So now I'm going to draw another time cone overlapping with that time cone, but I'm going to draw it in a radically different color, so hopefully you can see it. How about, whatever, I'll choose like a grayish color. I don't know if it'll show up. But if I draw this time cone over here, oh good, you can see that, okay. There's this area of coincidence in the center here, and I'll point to it right around there. That's where your timelines overlap. And you can see the time cone that I just drew. Look, there's an orange central pole, like a tent pole, that's the Ascended Master pole. That central timeline does not meet up with that central timeline. And what that really implies is that a person could be on their Ascended Master timeline, and you will not be experiencing them as an Ascended Master. You would be experiencing them in this area of distortion, where they might have either died or not fulfilled their true potential, or become a totally distorted version of who they could have been. So let's also talk, this is not about judgment, this is really more about just geometric structure. All of the things that I'm showing, like when I'm saying, you look like this is just saying that, I didn't invent it. I did not invent this, I merely perceive it. This is the way that your timelines are structured, and this is giving you information about the implication of this. So, okay, if you're an Ascended Master, it means you've graduated, you've reached the highest heights. You are still responsible for all of the things that the distorted aspects of you did on your journey to Ascended Mastery. So I know that I've spoken in previous classes. For some people who are tuning in, this concept might be new, but I think most people are familiar with this, the idea of negative vibration, lower entities. Entities who occupy the interstices. They literally occupy the flowing membrane along here. They're like blockages. They're like food that has been eaten by the universe and is still in the intestine and hasn't been digested yet. Because what happens when your consciousness is traveling, you're traveling up these timelines, right? And when you reach the membrane of death, when you reach that membrane, it's like a waterfall. And what it does is the action of it washes away or unmakes all of the configurations of energy that you made during your life. You made all these configurations of energy, a story that holds together. I was born on this day. I rode my bike. I fell down and skinned my knee. This is my story of me. This is who I am. All of that gets unmade. It gets erased. It gets unraveled. And you travel back to the beginning and you start again. But it's not that you do not lose that, the information and the experience that you have gleaned from that experience. It stays with you. So you went through that and now you learned, okay, that didn't work, so now let's try it again. So these peripheral experiences inform your central experience. And so now I've said, okay, so there are these intestinal blockages of the universe, beings that refuse to get digested. And they've put themselves in that position intentionally because it's a position of power where they can, we're talking about the astral plane, beings who have occupied it for eons, literally. Most of them are trapped there in a sort of prison where they can't feed on pure love, light, the energy that is the pure consciousness of the universe. And at the same time, they can't fully incarnate and eat the physical food, the physical food that we eat to sustain us. So these are the lower vibrational negative entities that feed off of the living. They feed off of you. They feed off of your happiness or your energy or the food that you actually ingest and that they then siphon off, okay? The implication is that every single one of those lower vibrational negative entities is an outgrowth of an Ascended Master. And I'm now giving you like cosmic lawyer information that if you have demonic entities or lower vibrational negative entities that are impinging upon you or coming into your mind or your energy field in any way, it is absolutely appropriate to call upon the ascended masters to whom those negative lower entities belong and to tell them that they need to rein in their unconscious dark side. This is absolutely appropriate because all of those beings that are ascended, they have exited the time plane. They now exist beyond time, but we're still submerged in time, and aspects of their self that need to be healed might be having a negative impact on you, me, and everyone else. And we could even say that the reason why these lower vibrational negative entities or creeps, they're like cosmic creeps, why do they try to get at you? Because what they're really saying is, please heal me. They're really saying, please heal me. I am a lower nature and I got stuck in an interstice and I'm not supposed to be here. And the way that you heal those entities, first of all, you recognize who and what they are, and then the universal solvent. People say water is the universal solvent. Unconditional love is the universal solvent. And I have said before that unconditional love is not just an ideal or like, oh, I love you, or even how I love my cat. It is not just affection, and it's not just a mammalian emotion or a desire to hug something. Unconditional love is a tone. Literally, like if you sing a note like la, we want your heart to make that sound. And it is an electromagnetic field that your heart creates. So now, once again, I'm going to do a great shout out recommendation to the work of Dan Winter. He's an excellent teacher of not only galactic history, he was trained as an electrical engineer, and when he started to receive insights from hyperdimensional realms, created apparatus that can measure the coherency of the field around your heart. And this is also pretty interesting. It's like people whose talents and skills before they are awakened being applied once they become awakened. So he took his science knowledge and his, very hands-on knowledge of the way that physics works and applied it to being able to measure this thing that science has not yet accepted. And that's the idea of heart, your heart consciousness. Okay, so Dan Winter, if you check out some of his videos, he will show you how your heart is comprised of 7 layers of cardiac muscle. And the way that the cardiac muscle is layered on top of each other, and the way that it squishes together, it's all about fluid dynamics. It creates perfect toroidal energy fields when it pumps in a healthy way. And so again, this is not something that science measures right now. Like science will measure, like, do you have arterial blockages? Science will measure, do you have you had a heart attack? Like we can tell whether your flesh has died. But science, as it is right now, does not yet recognize what is the coherence of your field? Like how coherent is your heart field? And that's really important because that's the bridge to unconditional love, to understanding that we each create this electromagnetic field, and the more coherent your field is, the more powerful that tone of unconditional love is. So let's say you are creating a nice, powerful field, a very strong unconditional love field, and one of these lower vibrational negative entities comes into your field. You can love them. Literally, they are making themselves known to you, sometimes by trying to be violent towards you. Like, I've had the experience in meditation or even throughout my day of these lower vibrational negative entities trying to punch me in the face or trying to, hit me in some way. And it's a distraction technique. And again, I'm interpreting this through my anthropomorphic filter, they are in a sense saying, I'm here, acknowledge me and heal me. And there's a good writer who wrote a book called The Electric Jesus. His name is Jonathan Tlalat. And he talked about how for years, really beneath his radar, he had an energetic parasite that was feeding off of his emotional center, his orange chakra. And that for many years, this emotional parasite would make him have anxiety and even panic attacks, especially before he had to give a big speech. And at a certain point, he recognized that the entity was coming to him for healing. And every time it poked him and gave him that anxiety, it was saying, heal me, and that it was an aspect of his own self. That's what I'm talking about. Oops, okay, I'm going to briefly pause in order to take care of my technology here, but that's what I'm talking about when I say that ascended masters have a responsibility to take care of their lower vibrational negative dark side, or it's really the unconscious side. The experience of having physical matter means that you're going to have a shadow. You have a shadow side. And becoming an ascended master also means that you need to become aware of your shadow side. So give me one moment. I'm just pausing in order to save. I'm saving what I got going on here. And then when it's done processing, then I will get going on the next one. Very good. And take a moment to drink a little something. Great. So, and now I'll just, okay, oh no, maybe I'll put a few interesting pictures up. You get to see me while I'm in, like, behind the scenes. That's what this is when I'm scrolling through and looking at my pictures. Here we go. So this picture that I just put up there, this is a painting that I did actually on Yupu paper. It's kind of like a very slick watercolor paper. And this shows very well that our third eye is like one of these, but this is the size of our head, okay? And it sits upon our shoulders, but really there is a rotating energy field here that is made of unconditional love. And I have another image, if you'll bear with me while I go through and scroll through in order to find the next image. I can do it fast, I'm good. There we go. Okay, good. So here's another image, and I think, oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen, but okay, might be a little bit too light. It's a pencil drawing that I did, and I'll go over it so that you can see it a little bit better, but we have basically this big vortex shape, and then we have a human head in the middle, and this area right here, this is the apparatus that is your third eye. And the key aspect of this is to see the way that these two edges of the wheels, the edges of the chakras, which are spinning wheels, are nestled within the cleft of this area right in here that I'm highlighting in orange, okay? So this drawing, this is all about unconditional love. Unconditional love, I have said before, is the prerequisite for being able to matriculate to the University of the Universe. It is the stable foundation, like the bottom of the pyramid, that it is necessary to create so that you can then put the apparatus of your third eye and also your connection to higher intelligence on there. The lens of your third eye, what I have drawn back here, this is your anthropomorphic filter. I also call it the steering wheel of your mind, because this is literally what you use to determine which timeline you're on. So now I'm going to draw one of our time vortexes, right? I'm not sure if you can see it back there, but really what determines if you're on this timeline or if you're on the central timeline, the ascended master timeline that of course we all endeavor to be on, what makes that happen? Your third eye. It is like your steering wheel. And what I've spoken about, these lower vibrational negative entities, in many ways, their battle plan is a plan of distraction. Like, imagine if you are driving down the street or you're someplace where, you know, there's a lot of stimuli and it's like, look over there, look over there, look over there, look over there. That is what the experience of having a mind is like to most people. And, you know, it's been very educational for me to come here to this world and meet people and find out what their minds are like. Because through cultivating my mind, I now have control over my steering wheel. However, I have had times when I wasn't in control of my faculties, and I use that to apply to how others experience mind. So first of all, when I talk about mind, I mean your yellow chakra, the level of your human consciousness, what we define as human. And in terms of your neurology, it would be your cerebral cortex, the convoluted surface of your brain where most conscious, rational thought occurs, even though you know deep inside of your brain. And in this blue picture back here, I have depicted the cerebellum and the limbic system, and there's several glands at the center of your brain, including your pineal gland, that have an impact on your consciousness. So again, we're helping science to broaden its terms and understand that consciousness resides in many areas of the brain. Human mind, the human operating system, is mostly the cerebral cortex. And I've also spoken before, and I said it, this is in lesson 3 in the recording, about how it is a hacked operating system. So that means that the structure of the human mind, as it was implanted or programmed into you at infancy, it is, first of all, not programmed into you for your convenience. No. It is programmed into you for the convenience of the programmers. So that means, like, if I were Microsoft, I would want to program it in so that I could take control of your computer at any time. I could insert whatever advertisements I want. I could turn you off at any time. And this is pretty much why people have not been in control of their steering wheels. Why are people so distracted? Why are people unable to be focused and to willingly focus on the timelines that they want? Because let's face it, if we had a choice, like if I am drawing the time vortex again, if I had a choice about either being on the central, ascended master timeline, or, being on one of these outlier timelines where I'm going to die, I would choose the ascended master timeline. Of course, wouldn't we all? If only it were that easy. Because while you're trying to drive down the road of consciousness and experience that centralized timeline, literally there are other entities that are taking your steering wheel and trying to drive you off a cliff. If you've ever had an addiction of any kind, and I have, of course, I smoked tobacco for 4 years, as Aurora here in this body. So I got to have the experience of what it's like to have an addiction and feel your steering wheel be tugged in a different direction. If I would be like, no, I don't want to smoke tobacco, and something else would tear me away. Yellow, the level of your conscious intellect, is also the level of will. And will is a non-physical energy apparatus. Just like I talk about how your third eye is an aperture, and it reaches out, it attenuates. It's almost like a nose or a tendril that reaches forward. Well, your will is the same way. Your will is like a limb that reaches forward and has an impact. If you want to explore your will, I will invite everyone within the sound of my voice right now to simply wiggle your toe. Whatever allowed you to actually make that body part wiggle is your will. Or, wiggle your pinky or lift up your arm. That's a miracle. It's quite amazing. What is it exactly that allows you to do that? And its concurrent question, what is it that prevents you from doing that? So when people are not in control of their will, here's another good example, like having music stuck in your head. I'm sure everyone has had the experience of having an unwanted orchestra playing the stupidest song or commercial jingle in your head. It's against your will. I didn't specifically say, I want that song playing in my head. I didn't turn on the mental radio and say, let me listen to that. It got stuck in there. That's an example of your hacked operating system. It's not coincidental that marketers and advertisers take advantage of the giant holes that are in your operating system to get their messages in there. Because it's not just exterior marketers that put things in there. It's also religions giving you religious dogma and the programming, the expectation of what's going to happen to you at death. because that is a pretty important day. That's like you're a debutante and you are at your debut and you are having your coming out party. Well, there's a lot of social and cultural programming about what's going to happen when you die and the end of the world. There's all sorts of social and cultural programming that gets snuck in through these giant gaping security holes that everyone has in their mind. Okay, now let's talk about claiming your kingdom. I am so pleased when I hear and read about the sovereignty movement. This is a political and financial movement that's in every single country at this point, that basically people are waking up to the fact that they are sovereign beings. And despite that you know that you are sovereign, governments and banks have taken your persona and done things with it against your will. Who you are has been co-opted. The steering wheel of your life is not in your own hands. And people are understanding that this is not by accident. This is actually a plot, an intentional plot by the people who created your hacked operating system. Humans did not create the human mind. I've said it before and I will say it many times more. The human mind was created by non-humans as a limiting factor to prevent humanity from reaching its full potential and gaining its higher faculties. So the mind that we currently experience as humans is actually mostly created by non-terrestrial, extra-dimensional, non-human entities, and I don't mean ascended masters. And to clarify, ascended masters once lived in a corporeal form, but now they have graduated to a new level. The corporeal form that they lived in did not have to be human. So there are ascended masters that come from every different place and might look different than humanoid. But one of the things I'd like to tell you about this lens that we have in our third eye, I call it your anthropomorphic filter. That literally means your human-shaped filter. If I'm looking through my human-shaped filter at someone else and they look like me, then I say, oh, you are also human, right? If I look through my human-shaped filter at someone else and they don't look like me, I say, oh, you are not human, okay? If I am an alien and I look through my filter at someone else and they look just like me, I say, ah, you look just like me. I would say I would define them as human. If I define self as human, then I would say, ah, you look just like human. So I hope that that came across properly. Here's another way to illustrate this. If you, as you are right now, hopped in a time machine and went back in time and interacted with either a Cro-Magnon or a Neanderthal from, 10 or 20 or 30 or 50,000 years ago, they might not even recognize you as being a member of the same species. Although, no offense, Zach, you're looking very bushy, so, maybe you would fit in. They'd be like, you're like me, you're furry. But, mostly we look very different. We have more slender bodies. We have finer features. Their lives were a lot rougher and they were prepared for that level of roughness. So let's talk about if I looked at someone who is from the far future, where maybe humans at that point have evolved away from the necessity of having any kind of muscle tissue. Maybe if you've become totally telepathic and totally have the capacity for telekinesis, maybe you don't use your muscles very much and are very skinny and tiny. If we looked at those beings, we might not even recognize them as human because we're looking through our anthropomorphic filter and we say, wait, you look different than me, therefore you are different than me. But just like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you can get your babble fish, you can get a little translating fish that goes in your ear that makes it possible for you to understand any language. Your third eye, this lens, when it is functioning correctly, and when it is connected to your crown chakra, your guiding, connection to higher consciousness, you are able to see any consciousness as an equal. So this is a very important distinction to make, not to get caught in the distortions that come from looking at the world through an anthropomorphic filter, through looking at the world through a human lens. A lot of what we are doing now in terms of preparing Earth culture and planetary consciousness for a shift into something higher has to do with preparing people to look at something that might look physically other, but to understand that it is the same. So I've had this experience with my hyperdimensional entity friends, dependent upon what aspect of self I am identifying with and what mindset I'm in when I look at them. Sometimes they look more like me to me, and sometimes they look very odd and very different. And I understand that I also have not only two, I have multiple aspects. So I have this aspect here that looks humanoid, and then I have another aspect that does not look humanoid. It has a very large elongated head and very large eyes and a differently shaped and sized body. And I was giving a presentation at Alex Gray's COSM one year. This is like a year and a half ago. And she became a student of my class. She came up to me and she said, when you were speaking, I could see your true form. And she described it to me, and she even gave me a picture of that. So this is like saying that I'm describing the many roles or functions that your third eye performs. It's a lens and a filter through which you perceive reality, and it's also the steering wheel which determines what timeline you are experiencing. So becoming an ascended master has everything to do with gaining control of your steering wheel and no longer having those lower vibrational negative entities jerking your steering wheel to the side, distracting your consciousness, or making you choose to do things that are not in alignment with who you really are. So now we're talking about epigenetics, right? This is the idea that your DNA is not written in stone. Your timelines are not written in stone. All of this has everything to do with choices that you are making throughout your life. And being incarnated, being here in this level of physical density, on the one hand, it is more difficult because you have less of a viewpoint. You're not up above the river, looking down at the river of time as it's flowing. You're submerged in the river and trying to understand what is going on without that higher perspective. But by being submerged in the river, it allows you the capacity to create something new. And I was talking with Mike about this earlier today in conversation. I'm not just talking about physical reproduction. Like you come here and you take the time to grow a corporeal body, not just so that you can have a physical baby, like that's creation on a very literal level, but so that you can create new ideas, new concepts, new ways of doing things, new approaches. The opportunity to create new things in that way is not available to everyone. You have to be in certain positions in order to do it. So these higher dimensional beings partner up with beings that have a juicy, organic, corporeal body and all the creativity that comes with that, because they don't have the access to being able to create new things. This is also, I do one of the lessons is all about organic life versus inorganic life and the two aspects of self. We're really talking about two aspects of our own consciousness. Our our abstract self, which exists in the non-corporeal realm, is still our self. It's like, that's like saying that's my left hand. And then there is my right hand, which is my corporeal self that exists in this realm. So my non-corporeal self, that's my chakras. Literally, this chakra on your body is a non-corporeal entity. We're getting somewhere now. All of the chakras on your body are non-corporeal entities. They're all ascended masters. And then sometimes, like this person who wrote The Electric Jesus, you might find that there's some unwanted stowaways that are also riding along on your chakras, and that they're, instead of the chakras being in alignment, causing the chakras to be tilted off to the side. Just like ballast, emotional ballast that causes a boat to be rocked over to one side, or that makes a hot air balloon not be able to rise as high. And these beings that act as emotional ballast, they are like trying to feed off of. I'm just laughing because I see your cat is supervising and wants to be a part of the video conference, and mine usually does too, so that's really sweet. We have a whole thing also about animal mind. We talk a lot about the human mind, but animals have their own specific mind, and they're very beautiful, so we can talk about that on another lecture too. But the whole idea that there are these beings that are hitchhikers that have gotten on your chakras, that are part of your non-corporeal energy centers against your will. And that now, I was talking about the sovereignty movement, humans are exerting their will, or our will. Sometimes I'm not sure how to say it, but earthlings are exerting our will. So there's a political movement towards self-sovereignty. And a lot of people, what they do is they have themselves, it has to do with paperwork mostly, because a lot of the ways in which your identity and sense of self was co-opted has to do with paperwork, right? The story of who you are, and your birth certificate, and your social security card, and your bank accounts. So humans are pushing the envelope and trying to redefine themselves in terms of the social structure, which up until this point, the social structure was not created by humans. This is another thing that has to be understood, just like the human mind was not created by humans. The social structure here and the economic structure was not created by humans. It was created by non-terrestrial, extra-dimensional entities who really have the intention of controlling, manipulating, and in a sense, farming the consciousness that is here on Earth. So let's say you're a farmer and you're like, you know something, I don't want the trees to grow too tall. It's too hard to pick the apples at the top if they grow too tall. So I'm going to chop them down when they get to be this high. That has been going on for thousands of years with human consciousness. That non-terrestrial beings felt it to be inconvenient for humanity to claim their higher faculties, including your third eye. Much more convenient for your mind to be out of your own control, for your will to be out of your own control, for the steering wheel of your third eye to be out of your own control. And that way you can be manipulated and fed upon. And when I talked about your operating system is hacked, what that means is anybody can talk to you. Anybody can put thoughts in there. Anybody can say anything. They don't have to be an ascended master. They don't have to be a loving person. They don't have to be nice or have your best interests at heart. And I will tell you that really 90% of what tries to come in is just pure garbage. There's a lot of, and when I say garbage, there's a lot of not valuable information that exists in the non-physical realm. Just like, in a library, there's a few books that are really, really good, and there's a lot of books that are just trashy and not well written at all. Well, we're talking about, just because you are non-corporeal does not necessarily mean you're a perfect or ascended master, ascended person. But of course, what we are trying to do here through, why did we come into the physical realm? To have access to creativity and to be able to create new timelines. When you physically procreate and you create a new baby, you create a whole ball of possibilities. Think about that baby could grow up to be Mother Teresa, that baby could grow up to be Hitler, or anyone in between, You create a lot of timelines. You also create new timelines when you create a new idea. So for me, the flying rainbow lasagna is a new idea, but so is every drawing, every painting. Each one of us, if you play music, you're putting together notes that are already in existence, that you're not inventing new notes, but you are putting them together in a new way, or anything that you've ever done. Perhaps you take it for granted because you're here and you're constantly creating new stuff. I mean, that's it. People in this realm create new stuff all the time, almost not recognizing how valuable and special that is. Because when you exist in the hyperspace realm, when you exit this reality through the wormhole and you are in a hyperspace realm, you're no longer in a position to create new threads in the time tapestry. That you can certainly observe what's going on and have a great impact on the interactions of these different levels of reality, but really it takes being submerged at this level of density to really create something new. So that's why I came into this level of density. If I could have accomplished everything that I needed to accomplish without having a body, I would have done it in that way. In order to create the flying rainbow lasagna, in order to create something new, I had to be physical or be in the physical realm. And the process of creating the flying rainbow lasagna happened like during an overlap time. So it's like I was not in the physical realm, but I was in the physical realm. There's a lot of cosmic lawyering we could do, but I'm using it as an example that really, and also an empowerment. So part of the sovereignty movement is empowerment of each individual human, that instead of being defined by your government and bought and sold as commodities in a huge world bank, that you are claiming and saying, I am a country of one. I am in charge of who I am, and I get to define who I am, and I get to say who I am and who I'm not. I wanted to bring up also the concept of surfing reality. So you can ask this of me also, like, well, Aurora, now that you have control over the steering wheel of your mind, your life is absolutely perfect, right? Right? No, my life is not absolutely perfect. I mean, it's perfect in its imperfection, and there are a lot of things that I would like to improve on it. And I recognize that I am surfing reality. So that means that there is a set of pre-existing limitations or a pre-existing world that I am integrating my new energy into. That, like when you are surfing, and I'm not a surfer in any way, but from looking at it, I see that it is necessary to work with the ocean currents, to wait for the proper opportunities to come to you, and then the expertise of the surfer is how you use those opportunities. So I, and we all are, in divine co-creative partnership with higher dimensional consciousness, with ourselves in a higher dimension. And the information and energy that comes from ourselves in a higher dimension, those are like the ocean waves that are coming to us from far out in the ocean of consciousness. And then it's up to us as individuals how we surf those waves. You know, using your third eye, using your steering wheel in order to go in this direction and go in this direction. Because it's also like saying, well, why not just instantaneously like switch realities to the reality where you're in, have tons of money, you're in perfect health, you have unlimited access to everything that you could possibly need. And the answer to that is because we're in a transition realm where, like in a dream, you can have a total non sequitur. You can have experiences or vignettes that don't hang together. Like 1 minute I'm eating a pizza, the next minute I'm hang gliding. And there was no integument between those two activities. But we are in a transitionary realm of the physical realm. We're not in the same physical realm that we were in prior to 2001. We are in a new realm now where the characteristics are still being defined about exactly how malleable it can be, but this new realm has a new form of matter in it that responds much better to our mind and our consciousness. And instead of having to wait for a very long time to see something manifest, we are now able to see something manifested much more quickly. And at the same time, remember I was telling you about those interstitial beings, the beings that are lower vibrational negative entities that occupy the membranes and would like to prevent you from having access to resources and or manipulate your consciousness for their own convenience. Those beings are all being kicked out of the astral plane or that membrane existence. House is being cleaned, and that means that places where energy couldn't flow in the past, energy is now flowing. And I bring this up in order to give everyone a great deal of hope and good feelings about what is coming in the future, because things that used to be limited or non-existent are now highly possible because of the existence of the flying rainbow lasagna. It's like saying I created an energy bridge so that you could get around whatever was troubling you, whatever was limiting you. There are now no blockages. And so one of the first things now that we can get around those blockages is we're dismantling the blockages. We're getting energy. It's like saying, I've been down here all this time and I never got any light or money or energy. It's like saying, well, now I'm sending you a care package. You're finally getting the care package. And when you have that energy, what are you going to do with it? Dismantle the blockage. So a lot of people are doing this in their internal body system and also in society, because it's all microcosm and macrocosm. So the sovereignty movement in the macrocosm of human society is all about removing those blockages. And the blockages in society have been the huge international banks, the system of finances that creates a kind of financial slavery through exponential interest accruing. You understand? It's not by accident that you get a credit card and it's at 6% and then you miss your payments and it goes up to 12% and then at a certain point you're so much in the hole you can't get out of the hole. That's not by accident. These things were created intentionally. And that cycle of debt happens on an international level also, and all of that was set up really as a system of control, as a system of abuse. And so as we are getting rid of the non-corporeal entities that have been feeding off of everyone's chakras, we are also getting rid of the systems that those non-corporeal entities set up in reality, really thousands of years ago, and programmed you with your hacked operating system to accept. Changing your mind and your mental structure now at this point is a radical act that is allowing you and the rest of humanity to be free and actually choose which timeline you get to be on. So I'm completing the recording of the educreations lesson and would love to open, here we go, would love to open the floor to any questions. If you have any comments or questions or anything that you would like for me to go further on.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, are you the process of the sovereignty movement, the paperwork type thing? Are people generally being treated fairly if they decide to stand up for themselves and do that, or is there some oppression that goes with that?
It really varies from experience to experience. So I have seen anecdotal stories about people, for example, refusing to offer their driver's license, saying, I have the right to travel freely, I'm not hurting anyone, and I don't have to have a driver's license to be able to do that. And it really depends. Like, if you get the right cop, then you might be able to talk sense to them. But some people get dragged into court because according to the rules that are programmed into this time and place, if you drive a car, you're supposed to have the right piece of paper and the information to prove that you're allowed to do that. Or another one is people who are having issues with their mortgages and they end up, being in arrears and they end up going to court. Some people have been able to use the paperwork to their advantage, and I'm not that well versed in it. It has to do with using your name, doing something, the straw man, which was created out of your birth certificate early in your life and has been traded as a commodity. It has something to do with claiming that. So in a lot of ways, it's like saying you're using their system against them, their system of bureaucracy and paperwork and administrating in order to set yourself free. But a lot of it is done on technicalities, like you have to know, and the information is not, they don't make it easy for you to find, but now that there are a lot of people that know about it, people are educating one another. So it is very much like saying that you can become educated about what your rights are and then express them in the best way. I've seen, sorry that was a long answer. Let me give a better answer. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube recently about people challenging police procedures, like when they stop you to test for DUI. When they have like a street blocked off and they just stop every car. Well, that's unconstitutional. And I've seen some great videos of people who know their rights and they're informed, and when they get stopped, instead of just giving it up to the cop and saying, oh yeah, here's my driver's license and my registration and my stuff, and like being a good sheep, what they say is, Am I legally required to answer your questions? Am I legally required to give you my identification? Or I've even seen videos of this, like people walking down the street and they get hassled by a cop and the cop asks them for their ID and they say, am I legally required to offer you my ID? And every time humans do this, I feel so happy. I feel like, yes, they're doing it, because the cops represent the implanted social structure, the implanted structure of social control that is not human. Basically, when you're a cop, you're working to oppress humanity for a bunch of non-human, non-earthly, beings. That you're not working for the man, you're working for the non-man, and not for benevolent space aliens either. So I would say this: if you want to experiment with putting into practice some of these sovereignty issues, you have to be really well informed. You have to know the law and know your rights better than any cop, better than any lawyer, better than any judge. You have to be like super informed, and really knowledge is power. So I'm not informed enough, I'm not an expert enough to tell you about this, but I'm happy to say there are a lot of people that are. Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian, has been doing a lot with the sovereignty movement on an individual level, and has even created some personal contracts that you can use for becoming free within the system of slavery. So it's like saying, I know that I exist within a corrupt system, but I am declaring myself free, and I will now live as a free being. And there's also, so that's a good person to investigate. There's also the Ubuntu movement in South Africa, and the leader, or whatever, a sensible leader of that party, Michael Tellinger. And he is working a lot with the idea of the sovereignty movement on an international level, being declared sovereign like as your own country, and how to do that even though you live within the borders of a country. It's like saying, essentially, at a certain point in our minds, we will no longer say, I'm an American, or I'm from France, or I'm an Australian, or any of these things. We are really going to say, I am a human, or I am a occupant of Earth, or I am a citizen of the galaxy, and this is the first part of that movement.
She uses incredibly hair. She's not using carpet, she's using the damn chair. She doesn't very often.
Okay, so there's a chat down here that says, I've been getting, so I'm going to read this chat that says, I've been getting the message that Earth is the last planet in our universe that is yet to ascend. Concurrently, I have also been told that this is the last incarnation for all humans. Are you familiar with this? Okay, excellent questions. I will tell you this. Yes, we exist in a solar system where each planet is its own planetary consciousness. So like Earth is her own divine citizen and has her own ups and downs, and Jupiter has his own life and his own way of doing things. And we are like siblings, or like members of the same family, and we have been going through concurrent levels of refinery. And it's also, our solar system, we come from a troubled family. There's the asteroid belt that exists between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. That is old family history. That's what happened to one of our family members because of an internal dispute. That planet got killed and now exists just as a realm of rubble. And the events that happened on that planet affected what happened on Mars. And what happened on Mars and what happened there affects Earth. Like, there's a reason why Mars does not have a magnetic field. Many of the planets in our solar system have magnetic fields. Jupiter has one, Earth has one, Venus does not, Mars does not, Mercury does, Saturn does. So having a magnetic field is like saying your planet is alive. Mars and Venus suffered horrible tragedies that harmed their magnetic field. All of that is the backstory, our family history of this little section of the galaxy. And why do we have drama? Why do we have these interactions? Like if you have a bad thing happen to you, why does it happen? So that you can grow from it. So we're talking about these negative experiences that happened on a planetary level so that the entire solar system, which is really the consciousness of the sun, of a star, so that this star system can ascend and go higher. So yes, it is my understanding that right now, planet Earth, Earth consciousness is ascending. That really, the physical realm of Earth, like the physical body, died at least like 13 years ago, but has been going through many successive levels of death. Death is not the end. Death is not the end of your consciousness. I will tell you this from personal experience. You may die, but you do not have to die in terms of end your journey. You can continue on your journey, but it means that you're not beholden to the experiences of the past, or you're not defined by what you were in the past. So when Earth died as a physical being, we didn't stop. We didn't stop living or experiencing, but we stopped experiencing according to the rules of the old paradigm. When you die, you enter into a realm that is a totally consciousness created realm. Similar to the world that you enter when you're dreaming at night, and that realm is created by the interplay of your mind and your consciousness and your emotions. Well, when you die, when you no longer have a physical form, you also enter into a realm that is totally a creation of your interior experience, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. Right now, we are experiencing Earth, the planet's transitionary realm, where she has died and her consciousness is moving into a new form. Who she is now and moving into the future will not be limited or defined by the limitations of who she was in the past. So this has everything to do with each one of us releasing our personal emotional ballast of whatever we might have experienced up to this moment that brought us here. Does not have to define us as we move forward. First of all, because I understand that we're on a planet we're now in a magical reality. We don't live in the old reality anymore. But the interesting thing is that not everybody got the memo. So to many people who are tied up in the old paradigm, they still think that we live in a world of limitations. Like the old economy is based on the idea of physical stuff, commodities. I have this much gold, that's all that there is, so that's going to define how much gold is worth, or this many potatoes, or this many diamonds, or this many of anything, without understanding that we now live in a realm that is not defined by the limitations of commodities, by how much there is. Because guess what? Using my imagination and my innate creative capacity, I can create an unlimited amount of whatever we need. So yes, there's a limited amount of gold or coal or bricks or wood or whatever it is on the planet, but there's an unlimited amount of songs, art, poetry, new ideas, and these new ideas mean that we can take the old limited amount of materials and use them in an unlimited way. So that's just like saying, I can divide the space between where I stand and the wall an infinite number of times. This is a finite amount of space, but I can say, oh, I'm getting halfway closer. Let's divide it again by half. Halfway closer, half again, halfway closer. And I can keep on dividing that space, half, 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 and never reach the wall. I can have an infinite amount of space within a finite space. And now we're talking about economy. Value is created by the exchange of energy. Value is not created by saying, I have this much gold, that's a commodity, and therefore I value it at this much. No, if you have a bunch of gold, you just have something sitting there. It is really the exchange of energy when I say, I take this gold and I'm going to trade it to someone else for something. That action of trading or giving back and forth, that's economy. And that's like saying taking half a step towards the wall and half a step towards the wall. You can trade a limited amount of commodities in unlimited amount of times. Therefore, the economy is unlimited. But there's a lot of people that are still acting according to the old way. So they're thinking, I'm going to buy a lot of gold or silver and I'm going to hoard it and keep it all for myself. And that mentality really was programmed into humanity by beings that do not have their own innate divine connection. Think about this. If you're not connected to the divine and you can't, let's say, cellularly regenerate, you and I, we take this for granted. I scratched my finger the other day. Like I got a little cut. It's better. I didn't have to get a new finger or live with that cut for the rest of my existence. But if I were acting according to the old paradigm, that's what would be happening. It's like saying there's a limited amount of energy, there's a limited amount of money, there's a limited amount of everything, and that is just, we are going to be defined by our limitations. That's the viewpoint of beings that are not organic, that don't have the capacity to either regenerate or generate something new. And so they live in a state of fear. If I couldn't regenerate my cells, I wouldn't want to get a little tiny cut on my finger. I'd be like, no, don't cut my finger. That will be there forever. Forever. Imagine not being able to ever fix a little tiny boo-boo. There's a good movie called Death Becomes Her. It's a silly movie. But in it, these women drink an immortality flask and then they don't die. But it doesn't mean that their bodies can't be injured. So they get these grotesque injuries, but then they're still alive walking around. So, of course, that would be a nightmarish capacity. So, I know this is a very long answer, but it was a very good question. So it's like this, and okay, what happened so let me read this so that everyone can see what this says. What happened in 2001 that changed our reality? Two things happened. One of the things was the events of 9/11, because what happened on 9/11 was really, it created a tear in the fabric of space and time. Or I've talked about the time tapestry in the past, how, there's timelines that are woven together and there's layers of time fabric and it creates a time tapestry. The events of 9/11 created not tears, but let's say disturbances in the fabric of the time tapestry. And that has everything to do with the timing of me walking into this physical corporeal form, because there were disturbances or perturbations in the field of, consciousness of what I was experiencing. In 2001, essentially, these beings who have hacked your operating system and held you in a state of slavery, mental slavery for many thousands of years, decided to make a bid for total domination. They were going to implant a mental virus, or a virus of consciousness, that would enter the third eye of humanity. And remember, your third eye, it's a chakra, and it's an entity. During this hour, I've defined your chakras as living entities that we are in partnership with. So it's like saying these negative lower vibration entities wanted to infect the entity of your third eye with a negative program through which they could control all of your third eyes. If I can control your third eye, I can control your imagination. I can control what you manifest. I can control your entire steering wheel of your entire reality. And if I can control everybody's third eye, then I can control everybody's reality. That's what they were trying to do. And the beings who were trying to do that were the same beings that destroyed the magnetosphere of Mars and did bad things that made the planet in between Mars and Jupiter get exploded. This is cosmic backstory. Why those beings are trying to do this here and now again, and what we are doing in response. Earth will not die. Not like Malduk, the planet that got destroyed, died. Not like Mars died. Not like Venus died. Earth will not die. Earth is an amazing creator. The consciousness of Earth is like an amazing artist, and also like a real warrior. Someone who says, no, this is an injustice. Like, I refuse to be murdered, and instead I will stand up and fight for personal sovereignty. And that Earth, the planet, is fighting for her personal sovereignty. Her creative resources were hijacked thousands, maybe millions of years ago, and Earth essentially suffered what could be defined as rape, like the rape of consciousness and of resources and of her capacities. So just one moment while I collect my thoughts. Those beings that wanted to control all of humanity and all of Earth and all of her creative capacities, they made a bid to try to do it. That was the events of 9/11. What they essentially did was, it's like a black magic spell. Black magic involves manipulating the forces of consciousness, but not necessarily using unconditional love to do so. It also involved the death of many people that were used as sacrificial victims and co-opting their will. Because when you die, your consciousness ascends. You go to a higher place. You go up. And the beings that were killed as the towers fell, and that was many, many people, like thousands of people dying almost, within a 10-second time frame, that created a huge updraft. And at the very same time, the Pentagon, which is a pentagram, in black magic or these esoteric practices, a pentagram is like a fence or a corral that is used to corral demonic consciousness. And when I say demonic, I'm talking about those lower vibrational, negative, service to self entities that have been occupying the membrane of death, the interstices. They've been hunkered down there for eons, and that they have been in control for a very long time. So one of those beings literally used to live in the Pentagon. They built the Pentagon in the 1950s as a house for a demon. That's a nice way of saying it, right? I couldn't be more clear. And literally, all of the wars and all of the bloodshed and all of the, secret wars by the CIA and Vietnam and Korea and the endless, police actions that took place across the entire world, all of that was a sacrifice for this bloodthirsty demon that was held within the Pentagon. The Pentagon was not hit by a plane during the events of 9/11, and it was wired with explosives so that it could be breached, so that one of the walls of the corral would open up and then that demon would come out. And it would be tied to the huge updraft of all of those 3,000 or more innocent people being killed in, a 10-second time frame. And the energy surrounding this was meant to take away all of your free will. And it goes back to ancient Atlantis, because in that time, and I existed as a non-terrestrial extra-dimensional consciousness, like I was not a humanoid at that time, but I was here and I was part of the events of what happened. During that cultural revolution, artificial means were used to control people's consciousness. The artificial means were Merkabahs, or star tetrahedral energy systems that were created not through unconditional love and through the use of cultivating your spirit and your mind. Like when we make a Merkabah, we do it with our body, we do it with divine co-creative partnership. But we're talking more about building a technological Merkabah, like the same way you can build a cell phone, right? I have this instead of telepathy. Well, people in that time and place were not, there were a lot of people that were troubled that built these apparatuses in order to control people's minds and to control their will. And when I say this, I mean like literally people were like marionettes when they turned on these enormous artificial power centers that took over your mind. You're going? Have a great night. Thank you so much, Libby. Thank you so much. Awesome. Yes, that took control of every human's mind. And this, I could give you all the backstory. But first there was genetic degradation, then there was technological use of artificial Merkabahs to control people's minds. But the whole point is, those beings that did that, they destabilized the entire surface of the planet, because your free will has everything to do with gravity. Your free will, your functional yellow chakra, when it is, free, when it's doing what it's supposed to do, has everything to do with stabilizing the gravity on the planet. And they really effed it all up when they created these artificial mind control towers that took away everybody's capacity to think clearly. So the short story is that humanity got like a mental wipe. You got shoved back down into almost total ignorance, and you didn't have the problem of someone else controlling your every thought, controlling your every directive and all of your actions. Really, we're talking about like literal slavery, like you don't have the option, you are moved around by someone else. This is a lot of backstory, but those same individuals who want to control others' behaviors so much exist in this time and place. And what they did with the events of 9/11 was to try to take control of everybody on the planet and all of your minds through your third eye. It was, however, not successful. And the reason why it was not successful was because the flying rainbow lasagna. This is like the antidote or the inoculation against the mind disease that they tried to implant in everybody's third eye. So when they did that, when they tried to implant that in everybody's third eye, that was pretty much like trying to kill Earth. And when I talk about everybody's third eye, I'm talking about Christ consciousness, not Christ the religion, not a bloody guy on a cross and all of the terribly distorted teachings that have gone on, dogma about who this person was. I'm talking about an extraterrestrial entity who is a benevolent space alien who is, interactive in all of our lives and who lives through our chakra, right? That's the entity that they were attacking in this attack. It's like Star Wars, a battle between forces from different star systems, okay? And they were using humanity as the pawns or the tools through which to attack. So those events were really meant to kill Christ consciousness and to murder the planet, right? But that didn't happen. What happened was Earth entered into an interim period, like a state of grace is a beautiful way of putting it. You could also think of it as the holodeck, like on Star Trek The Next Generation, a artificially created realm that is a bridge between what you were experiencing and what you will be experiencing. And from that artificial realm, that little bridge, came my experience of walking in, because I saw what happened. The previous occupant of this body was mentally attacked with this mind control virus, and it killed her, and I saw an opportunity to set humanity free by creating the antidote. And that was why I came into this body, and it is why I am here telling you all about this. The invention of a new thought called the flying rainbow lasagna meant that Christ consciousness would not die, all humanity would not die, the planet would not die. However, we would need to totally restructure or radically redefine who and what we are. Because, after you die, you enter into a world of pure mind. You're not limited by who you were in the past. You can fly, you can do whatever you wish to do in your non-corporeal, non-physical afterlife. And we are right now occupying Earth's non-corporeal, non-physical afterlife. One of the essential items to understand is that in your afterlife, there's a process of refinery where you figure out who you really are and who you're really not. This is often represented as life review, the idea of going to the pearly gates and having to talk to St. Peter, and either you're in or you're out, or according to the ancient Egyptians, you enter the Hall of Mat, M-A'-A-T, and your heart is weighed on a scale to see if your heart is heavy, according to the experiences of your life, if you have done well or if you feel bad feelings about what you've done. And if you have bad feelings about what you've done, then according to the ancient Egyptians, you cannot move forward. You go back for recycling. So, sorry, I think I might have gone a little bit afield there, but all of this is about, on Earth right now, separating out who is Earth's true self and who is not Earth's true self. Because there have been a lot of people occupying the planet and a lot of ideas occupying the planet that are not part of Earth's true self, her ascended nature. And so what we've been experiencing historically in the past 13 years and during the time that I've been here corporeally has been every single person having an opportunity to display the choices of who they align themselves with. So in terms of your politics and whether you are environmentally sensitive or not, like to give you an idea, in 2001, people believed it's the end of the world. I need to buy a Humvee so that I can protect myself from looting bandits and, drive off into the country. Like, people were controlled through fear. They were controlled through a mind control pattern. And they were not environmentally conscious, they were buying huge gas-guzzling, inefficient vehicles because that was the idea that was going to save them at the end of the world. So contrast that to now 13 years later, people are finally waking up like, maybe we should have less dependency on foreign oil and more electric cars. And that's because the events of 9/11 were like a bomb that was dropped that had reverberations for many years, and it took a lot of time for the reverberations to go down and for people to be able to think clearly again and to regain control of their faculties. So humanity is only now waking up to what happened. It's like if you were in a car accident and you got a concussion and you couldn't even remember what had happened, and then all of a sudden you come out of it and then you're able to be like, okay, I remember I was driving and then all of a sudden I hit a wall and there was an explosion. Humanity is at that point now. People are finally waking up, this is who Dick Cheney is. Look at how Halliburton profited from all of these things. Oh, this is the Bush family, the Bush cartel and the Carlyle group and all of their insidious dealings. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if someone was raising their hand, but yes, these are all of the awakenings that are happening right now are because the shrapnel from the mental bomb finally got cleared out and people can finally think clearly and begin to claim their own sovereignty. So Earth as a planet is claiming her sovereignty, and she's saying, something? You collective star system people have been walking all over me for a very long time, and I'm not going to have it anymore. So now Earth is saying, I, as a planet, am going to manifest the reality I wish to experience. And all of us here in this video conference, I'm happy to say, we're on the timeline where we will not experience the destruction of the planet. We will not experience either collapse, of the planet's magnetosphere, or social collapse, or economic collapse that is, so sudden and that so suddenly degrades human culture that it's like you're now, fighting for survival for the last can of beans. We are not going to experience that. We made it past all of those nodes or timelines. We made it past those exits on the freeway, and we are now really on the express lane on the highway of consciousness towards high technology that is very clean and is in harmony with Earth and the natural world. And this is really, we are creating the heavenly realm. When you go to when you die and you go to heaven. It means that you exit the limitations of the physical realm and you enter into a realm that is not limited. You're not limited anymore. And it's also a beautiful realm because everyone who's there is loving, and everyone who's there is also living their life to their full potential. All of the ascended masters are there, right? That's the planet we are going to be experiencing and living on. And it's not just Earth. So this goes back to the original chat question, because all of the planets are ascending and the sun is also ascending. It's like saying that we as a cosmic family, the solar system, and even our galaxy have been in turmoil, fighting amongst ourselves for a very long time. And we are now resolving these differences, because one of the key things is understanding unity consciousness and oneness, and the idea that not only everyone on earth, we are all brothers and sisters, but that we are emanations of star beings who also are all our brothers and sisters, and that not everyone may be perfect, like no one is to be worshipped, but no one is to be utterly hated and reviled, because everybody is an aspect of self. So like when I talk about Jonathan Tlalat and the electric Jesus and the way that he healed himself of the energetic parasite on his orange chakra, a lot of that had to do with him recognizing that as an aspect of self. And instead of hating that self and saying, get out, you're not me, I hate you, instead loving it, accepting it. Why did that aspect of self get to be that way? How did it get to be so twisted and distorted? What motivates it? This is what we have to ask ourselves of anyone who acts poorly, like any villain or, violent person. Why did they get to be that way? Because there's a central timeline where they're actually an ascended master. So why did all of these evil, non-terrestrial beings, these evil, draconians or whatever you want to define them as, reptilians, how did they get to be that way? Why do they have those characteristics? Why do they act out of fear? Why did they implant humanity with this control system and with this social control system? This is a really big part to creating that foundation of unconditional love. Because if you open your third eye and you start seeing demons everywhere, and George Bush is a demon, and the events of 9/11 were a black magic spell, it can be overwhelming, and people can, it can crash their hard drive. It can make them just be like, too much, can't take it, can't deal with it. You have to have a lot of unconditional love to be able to see the truth of what's happening and accept it. And so a lot of people are now seeing the truth of what's going on and accepting it, and the sovereignty movement is coming out of that. Oh, and one last thing, because I know this was a really, really long speech, but in terms of living again, like having to incarnate again, it is all according to one's individual choice. So right now, like I have a lovely relative, beloved family member who's like 99 years old. Amazing that she made it to 99, right? She has a choice. She can choose to die and let go of her physical body and be born into a new body that doesn't have all of the aches and pains and limitations of who she is. Or she can choose continuity of consciousness, which is, staying in the same form essentially, but transforming the form that she's in. So each one of us has a choice about what we will be doing as we ascend, as we go forward. So my personal choice is not to die the physical death. I actually already went through that doorway. I don't have to do it again. And I won't be lugging around this body for forever. I won't be feeding it, smoothies and banana chips forever. My body will transform into a light body. And it's already, a lot of the way there, where I won't eat physical food anymore. I will eat pure light through my third eye. And I won't be tied to the planet, so that I've got, physical plants that can collect sunlight and create, calories for me through chlorophyll. It will make it so that, hello to the person who just joined in. I'm happy that we went late so that you were able to meet us. My body, I might look like my corporeal form, but my body will act very differently. I won't have to chew up physical objects and place them in my body to get nourishment. I'll have direct sunlight. I'll experience total cellular regeneration. That means not aging. Like, that's a pretty heavy programming of the operating system. That's a hacked operating system. The idea that per force you are in a body and your body is going to age and then enter illness and decrepitude and then finally die. That's old paradigm stuff. That's according to the definition of earthly existence in the past. And we're now in a new realm where, through really having such a strong divine connection, we can experience cellular regeneration. So let's say this. Let's say that someone approached you and said, here is a process, a procedure that you can undergo, and it will take away any of your diseases, make it so that you don't have to age anymore, make it so that you don't have to die, and you can keep having your body and your continuity of consciousness. Like, that is essentially what is available as an option. So many people, they think death is inevitable, or many people want to die because it is a release from their illnesses or whatever problems they're having. But you don't have to die unless you choose to. So some people have chosen to die in order to get out of their life circumstances. And it's not even that they might have a terminal illness or be stuck in a wheelchair or anything like that. For a lot of people, it's they want to get away from the family limitations or the economic limitations of the country that they've been born into, or the social limitations of having a body that either is a certain color or a certain size or a certain gender. You know, if you are born with certain characteristics, it might mean that you're not going to get a job. You're not going to get the opportunities. You're not going to get that. So some people might be like, hey, you know something? I'm done with being limited. I want to be born in a body that's not going to face those limitations so that they can perform their mission. So it's really up to each one of us. And we get to, with no judgment, make this choice. And it's also why we can be with no judgment. If someone dies, it's not like, oh, that was a bad person and they didn't deserve to ascend. No, far from it. There are many good people who exist right now on the planet who died, but that's just because their present circumstances was not a large enough container for who they want to be. And there's a lot of babies that are being born now that are those people who have died because they're born into unlimited circumstances. Like maybe they have a wonderful musical talent even though they're 3 years old, but you see these little kids 3 years old playing like Jimi Hendrix on YouTube and you say, that kid has a mission and he's here now in an unlimited state so that he could do that because maybe in his previous existence, maybe he had arthritis or never got a chance to be a musician and he's like, you know something, that's what I want. That's what I'm talking about when I say that we are now in a time of unlimited manifestations and we're in a time of achieving your true potential. So it's not like, oh, I really want to be a musician, but I have to work at a factory, you know, going like this 5 times a day and making cars, you know. That's not a very satisfying experience for someone who's meant to be a musician or in some other way bring wonderful forms of creativity to the world. So a person might choose to be incarnated into a new situation so that they can finally be cultivated and express all the things that they wish to express. So I wouldn't judge anybody who dies from this time. If your physical body dies, it means that you might be hoping to switch into a new or expanded version of who or what you can be. So I'm so sorry. I know that was a very long, tangential, etc., but thank you for listening, everyone. So I'd like to say hello to the person who joined us most recently. Hi.
Hi there.
What's your name?
Ava.
Ava, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. Wonderful to see
Well,
you.
that's because I cut my hair.
That it looks fantastic. Very cute.
Cute.
So cool. I'm happy that we usually I end at 7, but we were doing question and answer after 7 and it ran a little late and luckily my internet connection was good this week, so I was able to stick with it. So yeah, I'm definitely open to if anyone has any questions or feedback or any other comments that I can reply to.
Well, I'm really thrilled to. I got to tune in at least to get the end. I know, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm very interested in everything you have to say, and I'm in agreement with it.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah, I was talking a lot earlier in class and referencing some of what's in the recorded lessons of lesson 3. So I think that I've got you on the list for watching the recorded lessons, and then also when I do these video conferences, I record the YouTube of our faces and our voices, and I also record what is projected on the screen behind me. So I'll send that out to you if you have a desire to catch up on the earlier part of our conversation tonight, and if you want to stay current with the recorded lessons.
Absolutely, I love it.
Wonderful, sounds really great. Well, it's 7:50, so I think that it's time for me to end. Oh, you are Noel, the person down in their chat. You are so very welcome. Thank you for participating and asking the chat. That's the whole point. I'm so happy. Like, it's why I've gone through the effort of creating the video conferences in a way that's interactive, because I don't want it to be where I'm just the talking head and no one can, cut in and speak. this is so much about our synthesis, or the synergy that happens when we get together and share ideas and share our consciousness journey. So thank you to everyone who tuned in and participated today, and to people who weren't able to participate. I totally get it. We're archived. Check out our archives and tune in next week. Next week, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a preview of what exactly I'll be talking about, but it will be good. Don't worry, it'll be good.
I'm sure.
Wonderful.
I can't wait.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye, dear.
Have a great night, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting now.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle and Zach.